Hey everybody, welcome back to Winding Down Chronicles from here in Laos. If you're tracking a moderate retirement budget or planning to transition out of Southeast Asia, you know that keeping an eye on the logistical numbers is non-negotiable. Today we're going to be looking at the realities and news on the ground in the month of June 2026. No filters, no politics, just the highlights of what you need to know about the country. So let's look straight at the economy. The big news out of the Ministry of Finance is that official inflation in Laos has dropped to 7.4% in June. This is showing a solid cooling from the 9% we just saw in May and the double digits we saw from the previous month, which were around 12. So if you're complaining about the recent 3.8% high inflation rate in the US, Laos is still double that. So quit your whining. But before you celebrate with a cheaper bowl of noodles, let's look at the subcategories. The highest price spikes are hit exactly right where expats and households feel it the most. Housing, water, electricity, and gas are sitting at a massive 20.1% year-on-year increase. Education is up over 12%, and medical care is hovering an 11.8% spike. This is one day after I just recorded this video and I just received my electricity bill. My electricity bill the previous month was roughly about between 1 million and 1.5 million. In June, it was 1.9 million. That is a 26% increase, and we have not really changed how we use the electricity. It might be a little bit more that we're using it just to fight a little bit the heat that we get, but we only really use it at night when we go to sleep. I get pretty moist before I finally decide to turn on air. So this is definitely increasing on our electricity bill pretty significantly, 25% in 1 month. Fuel prices have steadily come down over the month. Thank God for that. We're almost at the rates we saw just 4 months ago before the war started. Not quite, but it's still much better. And you can see this in the increased use of private vehicles again and the decreased use of the actual EV BRT system. Gasoline in Vientiane is tracking at approximately 30,960 kip per liter, which is around $5.40 a gallon, while diesel is slightly cheaper recently, at 24,560 kip per liter, which is about $4.32 a gallon. I'm not really sure how the prices work here because weeks ago, diesel was actually more expensive than gas. Now it's the reverse. Either way, it's coming down, and that's really, really good news. To combat the systemic supply issues, the government implemented a revised nationwide fuel price mechanism and finalized new bulk fuel supply arrangement. This is specifically aimed at keeping stations along major routes open consistently so we can avoid the dry pumps and the hour-long lines that plagued travelers early this year. And I can personally attest for that 14-hour drive to the south just 2 months ago during the peak at the highest prices that fuel prices were. It was awful. There was no gas in the stations, and we had to really be careful with not running too low and taking too much risk. So a major headline that gripped the nation over the last several weeks has finally reached a conclusion so far, following the intense rescue efforts to reach the miners who were trapped due to unstable geological conditions and sudden seasonal changes. The operations have finally wrapped up. It's a powerful reminder of how rugged and unpredictable the terrain can be here, and especially when the heavy rains start. Out of the 5 miners who were successfully saved alive at the end of May, 1 was extracted via a perilous 10-minute trust me dive through zero visibility, muddy water that they said was like swimming through coffee. The other 4 safely walked out after heavy water pumping created accessible air pocket clearances for them to pass through without needing to do the scuba diving that the first one took. And if you haven't seen any of the video, you need to see some of it. I'll try to put some of those clips here, but it is really incredible what they had to do to not only get in there, but worse, to come out. But unfortunately, on Saturday, June 6th, officially called off the search for the remaining 2. Heavy seasonal monsoon rains returned and reducing the cave's internal vertical breathing space, very unstable and prone to collapse. While active personnel are no longer permitted in the risk zone, local teams have automated water pumps running from the outside, so they're continuously running. Rescuers left strategic caches of food rations and survival supplies of various elevated dry points deeper inside the cave system, holding on to a small hope that the missing two men local tracking expertise might be able to help them find their way out and find supplies along the way. Alternative possibility noted by some of the survivors: because entering the caves for illegal gold mining is illegal and can lead to prosecution, there's a slight theory that the remaining two may have actually extracted themselves earlier and gone into hiding just to avoid the legal consequences. In tandem with the protecting these ecosystems, security forces launched an aggressive operations against illegal resource extraction. Just this week, the Savannah province, a massive sweep cracked down on heavy illegal logging and unauthorized gold mining networks, resulting in the detainment of over 20 suspects and seizure of heavy equipment. And remember, many of these people going into these mines, they're doing it to survive. You know, it's one of the only things they can do to find enough money to take care of the family. They're not going caving for fun. But despite Laos being the battery of Southeast Asia, rolling power cuts and localized grid strain hit multiple residents this month. When temperatures soar, the grid struggles. For retirees, this makes having a backup plan, or at least a good surge protector on your expensive tech gear, mandatory. We don't have any battery backup, and I don't have anything other than outlets. But personally, we experienced several blackouts this month. They do come throughout the year, and which typically they only last about a few hours at most. But one of them lasted for 1.5 days, even after us calling several times a day, and a lot of the neighborhood. It was only just a portion of our neighborhood that was out for that long. It was right after we made a grocery haul from the local supermarket. So we had a lot of stuff in the refrigerator that needed to remain frozen. Yeah, so it was bad timing, but fortunately it came back before we lost anything. And the hardest part was just trying to sleep in the heat. I mean, it's unbelievably hot here. This week is supposed to go up over 109 degrees Fahrenheit, which is almost 40 degrees Celsius. The tourism and travel and Vang Vien is experiencing a massive identity shift. Local tourism authorities are pushing an overhaul to pivot the iconic town away from its old raw party reputation and transition into a green, sustainable ecotourism hub. This overhaul directly collides with heavy industrial investment. Towns like Kasi and Vang Vien sit on incredible resource-rich corridors. The heavy truck traffic and environmental impacts from fast-track mining schemes have caused a pushback from local communities who rely on pristine natural beauty to drive their tourism business. On a personal note, I've never been to Vang Vien, even after living in Laos for over 5 years. I just never really had the interest, but I do plan to take a trip with my wife there sometime before the end of the year, probably after the monsoons pass. On the economic connectivity side, freight and transit logistics along the Eurasian railway corridors continue to scale up. However, building on this infrastructure safety means confronting a historic reality: the UXO, the unexploded ordnance clearance. Dedicated humanitarian teams continue to clear up vital agricultural and infrastructural zones this month, ensuring that expanding transit links don't come at a human cost. Laos is the most bombed country in the world, resulting from the Vietnam War. Hundreds still die or are maimed from unexploded ordnances every year, and it's probably something that will never go away. Over here, what we call the Vietnam War, they call it the American War. And if you watch regional news, you know that the transnational cybercrime has been a major point of friction across Southeast Asia. In June, police operations hit these scam centers incredibly hard. Major raids targeting call centers, fraud networks, and online scam syndicates took place in Bokeo province and the Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone. Authorities detained hundreds of foreign and domestic suspects, seizing thousands of laptops, phones, and active SIM cards. From a personal observation level, I'm seeing a lot more non-Lao people wandering around in various parts of the city that are definitely not tourist places, and they do not look like tourists. another long-term expat mentioned that he suspects that these are people who were brought in by the scam centers from different countries, and these scam centers typically confiscate their passports when they arrive, so you're stuck here. So when these raids happen, they scatter and are now likely just wandering the city illegally. So I just hope there's not an uptick in crime as a result from this. But I am definitely seeing it around different parts of the city where there would be no reason to live there as a tourist, or any real reason to be there unless you live there or are hiding out. On a more local community level, city municipalities and provincial authorities have noted an increase in unruly teenage gang gathering and late-night motorbike racing disturbances. While Laos remains incredibly welcome and safe overall for foreigners compared to major Western cities, local police are tightening curfews and increasing night patrols to maintain community order. So just keep an eye out when you're on the road and if you're driving late at night. Fortunately, we do not go out late at night anymore. And from my personal perspective, this is probably a phenomena that's connected to these kids watching too much social media and seeing the disaster that's happening in the US with these teen takeovers, or more like they're riots. We know what's going on, but they call them teen takeovers. It's just a bad learned behavior for kids who are bored or undisciplined, not monitored at home. I've not personally had any encounters, but I've advised my wife to be extra vigilant when she's in town, especially if I'm not with her. Don't wear bling bling jewelry, keep your bag close to you, and just stay off the frickin' phone when you're walking around. Do all your business inside when you're inside the store and your bank, and close your bag and be alert when you come out. Just stay vigilant and ask the security to keep an eye on you if you don't feel safe or you see savory characters on the street or around your car. Just play it safe. But if you keep your expectations realistic and look past the fake online travel filters, this country remains an incredibly safe place to live, to tour, and to visit. So if you want the real unfiltered look at early retirement, personal finance tracking, and cross-cultural marriage here in Laos, hit the subscribe button and drop a thumbs up. I really appreciate it, and it helps out the channel. Let me know your thoughts on this month's updates and comment in the section below which one sticks out to you most and what would you like to hear about on the next monthly update. This is Troyce at Winding Down Chronicles, and see you in the next one.